Ah, rum. Is there anything that goes with sailing quite like a bottle of rum? If you were to wander through the harbor getting $100 for every bottle of rum you found, you'd have more than $100. That's for sure. So, if sailing and rum go together, shouldn't we know more? Shouldn't we have more than a passing familiarity with the product? I think so. So come with me as we dive in. There's a rum for every person in every situation. There's light rum. There's dark rum. There's black rum. There's añejo rum, which means old in Spanish. There's spiced rum, flavored rums, and rums overproof so strong, they'll burn your face off. That would be a mistake. We're gonna make some of this stuff. Before we get into it, we need to find out the history of rum. Where does it come from? Who makes it? How do they make it? Why do they make it? What color is it when it goes into the cask? I know. Do you? You will by the end. So cheers, everyone, while we explore all there is to know about rum.
During the 1600s, the Caribbean colonies were making white men rich by producing the lion's share of the world's sugar supply, which left them with mountains of the tarry, sticky mess we know as molasses, and really, no use for it. Then some thirsty and industrious slaves figured out there was enough sugar left over in the molasses that they could distill it into alcohol. And rum was born. But it tasted like shit. It was so burny and harsh, they called it Kill Devil, and no one drank it. Until they started aging it in barrels. Then its production spread all over the Caribbean and the Americas, and later throughout the world. By definition, rum must be made by fermenting and distilling the byproducts of sugarcane. Sugarcane juice, syrup, or molasses can all be used and called rum. Other than that, there is no defined production methods and no universal requirements for aging. But many countries require minimum aging from 8 months to a couple years. Rum has had a rather sordid past in the slave trade, a coup in Australia, and of course piracy, which we won't dive into here.
So now that we've taken the time to learn everything there is to know about rum, let's make some. But we'll start with the equipment. Guess what I just did?
What'd you do?
I just ordered us something super cool.
For the boat?
Kind of for the boat, but mostly for us. Kelly, do you like to partake in adult beverages?
I do.
As do I. And because of that, I purchased us a still. I just got back from my day and there's something cool around the corner. Check this out. It's my still. Kelly!
What?
That. Look what came, Kelly. I think it's finally time to open this up. Kipo, you want to help me? I have no idea exactly what I ordered. It should be enough to make some liquor. Not that I would do that, because that's illegal in the United States. I'm going to make essential oils. You know what one oil I find lubricates things?
What?
Liquor. Social lubricant.
It seems essential.
I think so.
Does this count as a boat expense?
No, but it will be used on the boat. This is the column still, or reflux still. It is packed with what appears to be stainless steel mesh. And then this is the part where the essential oils come out.
Oh.
We have here the thermometer that you stick inside. Here are the instructions. This has the recirculating kit. A free jar. I didn't buy this.
What?
They gave this to me.
What?
How about that? It's got a bear on it.
That's cute.
Here is the thing that tells you how much booze is in it. I am now a chemist. This
Oh,
one's
good.
here.
Yep.
But these are like, I think they're 6-gallon buckets.
Little
This
bubblers.
lets air out without letting contaminants in. There.
Ah, whoa, whoa.
There it is.
Looks like a rocket ship.
Ain't she a beaut? Would you like to know how to use this thing, Kelly? Because I would too. This is the Brewer's Edge mash oil with a reflux still top. It locks in like this. All four sides. Turn the sucker on. This one has a pump feature, will be great when we're making whiskey, but we don't need that right now. 2 elements, you can set the temperature. This thing comes with just like a generic hose bib screw on. That doesn't work with this sink. So we ran it out the window to the hose that's just outside, and then it'll come back and drain into here. And then we'll collect the booze right here. And this should be our rum.
Is that all gonna fit in there?
No, but we have more than one mason jar.
That's good.
So there we go. So I'm going to drill a hole for this spigot. This will live in the top. We'll have a super fermenter. Oh, right here.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
There it is.
Wow, look at that.
This has a number 3 char. We're gonna use it for the rum, but when we switch over to whiskey, I'm gonna get number 4 char. That smells good. Stick your nose in that, Kelly.
Does it smell like number 3?
It's a number 3 char barrel.
Yeah. I don't know if I say that's a good smell.
What's wrong with this smell?
It's not a good smell.
Test them. I like it. See that? That's part of that number 3 char. See how my fingers come out black when I pull them out of the bunghole?
You're a peach.
But before we can use that fancy new still, we're going to need a place to start. You see, alcohol isn't created by distilling, it's concentrated. We're going to need alcohol to begin with, but where are we going to get it? What will we use to turn that molasses into an alcohol that we can distill? The answer to that question is our tiny little friends, known for making bread, beer, and wine. That's right, let's talk yeast.
Mankind has been creating alcohol for nearly 10,000 years, but for the lion's share of that time, no one really knew what voodoo was behind these sweet drinks magically giving us a buzz, until Louis Pasteur discovered the culprit. Yeast. Yeast, only visible to the naked eye in large quantities, are on everything. You, me, the dog, that tree, the floor, this door, and your mom, the nice person, are all covered in yeast. And when yeast come across simple sugars, they gobble it up and release 2 things, carbon dioxide and ethanol. That's right, alcohol. We let the carbon dioxide out and hold on to the alcohol. Also, they're super good at multiplying.
So that's what they're doing with all that molasses. They're turning the sugar into alcohol. But we can't just take a big handful of yeast and throw it in some molasses and snap our fingers and create the alcohol. That's no environment for our yeasty friends. They need nutrients. So we need a recipe. And for that, we're gonna take our cue from the Americans of Prohibition and do some moonshining. Well, hello there, and welcome to our first attempt at moonshining. Today, we are going to make that quintessential Caribbean cocktail creator, rum. We're going the classic variety with this rum with real molasses. So we have everything we're going to need here. Believe it or not, it includes using a drill, a paint mixture, and some Epsom salt. Traditional rum is made with molasses. You can either use regular molasses, which is the first run, or the second run that they use in like feed and things like that. That's called blackstrap molasses, and it gives you a much more complex flavor profile. But we're just going to go with classic molasses here, and we're going to start with the fermenting stage. So that's what all of this is. So I sanitized all the buckets. So the first step to knocking this out is to add the molasses. If you've ever played with molasses before, you'll realize it's not the easiest thing in the world. Because you see how slow this runs out? So I've got a couple of pots full of boiling water on the stove that'll help us do that. Ooh. This water is just off the boil, so we're going to put a little bit in each of these, cap them, shake the heck out of them, and try to get all the molassesy goodness out of them we can. Put this in this end. Oh, that's not quite tight. This one's going to be the weakest. So we dumped half of it on the floor.
A little less than half. Stop doing that.
This is synchronized. Whew, that's hot.
Hot?
Annoyed now that I put on my best outfit for this. This is probably a dangerous technique. I don't recommend. Oh, I did forget a step. We're gonna have to back up once we finish with this because we need to get our yeast pitched and proofing.
Oh.
Okay, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and get that yeast pitched after I wash my hands. This is the yeast we're gonna use. Red Star Distiller's Active Dry Yeast. You might see this referred to as DADY yeast, D-A-D-Y. It is specifically made for fermenting, distilling spirits. It turns, or does a really good job of turning the sugars into alcohol, so you'll end up with a higher percentage alcohol wash, which will further distill into spirits. We are going to need 40 grams, or about an ounce and a third, I think is what that works out to be. We want this to be about 95 degrees, and it is too hot for that, so I'm going to pour some off and add some water. This is called the blooming process, or activating the yeast, or whatever the heck. Basically, it's not required. You can just throw the yeast dry into the bucket, but this way, you can be assured that you'll get the maximum living active yeast. And we're going for 40 grams of yeast. It's about, I don't know, twice as much as the minimum they recommend. So we want to make sure this gets done within a week. So we can run the still next weekend.
How's it look?
94. We'll call that good. We'll stir this in and let that bloom for 15 minutes or so. Meanwhile, we've got some molasses to stir. So we have, remember, a gallon of the molasses in each bucket. These are graduated, so we can see on the side the 2 gallon mark. That's basically what we're shooting for with this hot water. So a gallon of hot water and a gallon of molasses. Okay, let's add our nutrients. B-Complex. Not only is it excellent for the robust health of yeast, it's also great for humans.
What does it do for you?
It makes you more complex as a person.
Huh.
So we're going to add the contents of 1 capsule to each. This is about twice as much as you probably absolutely need, but it's not going to cause any major problems, I'm sure. I'll do it from way up here, so if some falls out, no big deal. Just don't drop the cap in there. You can hear it sizzling.
That's right. The weird.
I think it's just popping bubbles. These look great. I'm very happy with how the color, the robust texture. So what's odd about rum making, at least in the home distillation process, is people talk about something called dunder. And all dunder is the crap left over when you do a distilling run. And people say, if you really want a nice complex rum flavor, you should add about a gallon of the dunder from the last run into this. So this is our first attempt, our first run. The following runs, we will just replace that gallon of hot water with a gallon of hot dunder. All right, now for the Epsom salt. They say a goodly pinch. Next, this is where we have to get a little clever. We're gonna take our yeast, make sure it's stirred up very well, and then add equal amounts to each. Okay, now we're gonna top it off with 95-degree water, and then we'll be ready to pop the lids on them and store them for fermentation. 92.1 degrees.
It's a whole different color too.
We cap them all. There. Okay, all those are tightly fitting. Now we take these and we fill them to the fill line. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It says fill line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then Plug them into the stopper. Put the little percolator piece on top. And the cap. The cap has little holes, but basically what this does is it doesn't allow outside air into the fermenter, but it does allow the fermenter to off-gas into the atmosphere. So the gas will come up, push this little plastic thing out, bubbles will form, bubbles will come up and out through these caps, but no air can get back in. It's brilliant. It's called an airlock that they're working right there. So within an hour we should start to see some bubbling. Let's go find a home for these guys. So we have heating pads underneath this that we'll plug in if we need to. But we're going to take this, which is an electric blanket, and believe it or not, in this basement, it stays pretty warm.
Bubbling?
Progress report. Closing in on day 3 of fermentation. I've jerry-rigged my setup just a bit to maximize warmth because DADY yeast, or DADY I should call it, because that's like saying ATM machine, which drives me nuts. DADY, distiller's active dry yeast, likes it a little warmer. So we've got this around 85 degrees down here. Are you ready to see it? Here it is, there's blankets everywhere. There's a heater blowing right at it. There's heating pads, there's warming blankets. And we're seeing some progress. I have no idea if this is a typical amount of blurps or not. This one seems to be the most active. This one, I think there's a leak somewhere because it smells like all the rest. Kind of sour and gross, but it refuses to blurp. So that's what we're calling that, a blurp. I can make it blurp. Ready? Blurp, 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 blurp. That's just by pushing on the top.
Remember how we said we'd ferment the next batch from the stuff left over after running the still? Before we talk about distilling, we want to show you a batch made with that Dunder stuff in the new giant fermenter.
Because if we keep using buckets of this size, this whole making rum process is going to take forever, because for like every gallon of wash you make, you get about maybe 10 ounces of actual alcohol.
That's not enough. No.
No, so I got this.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, food grade. This is a used food storage thing that has like this cool mason jar top that has a gasket in it, so it will be sealed. And then this screws on like a mason jar. So I'm gonna plug this in here, and we'll have a spigot, and I'm gonna put a little hole in the top so we can have the little gurgler bubbler thing, and then we're going to build our next fermentation out of this thing. We are actually going to use this leftover stuff, which is called Dunder, in our next fermentation. So that's our next step. That's what we're gonna do right now.
Cool.
We're gonna dump all of them in here.
All? Ooh, fine, no.
So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna get as much of it out of there as possible, and then we'll use the hot Dunder to shake the jar.
How do you get it to come out?
Just squeeze it.
This is a laborious process.
Switch over.
Maybe you want to give it a new one and I'll fill yours with Dunder?
Yeah, you just like saying Dunder, don't you?
Okay. Now, we need to mix all that up.
And add water.
Kelly just put in the capsules, 4 B-Complex capsules.
Here, I'll do a reenactment.
Yeah. And, and then
2 heavy pinches of salt.
Epsom salt. I'm recording this time, so that's great. Now you gotta mix it up, Kelly.
Okay.
I'll go get you the drill. Don't put your arm in there, that's contaminated.
No, it's not.
We need 5 more gallons in this recipe. And don't be alarmed if that bucket looks dirty. It's the leftover goo from the last batch, so it's technically okay to pour in there. Look at it go, Kelly. Perfect temperature of water to bring this to a nice 90 to 95 degrees. Black gold. Texas tea. This is 40 grams of yeast that has been fermented, or that's been blooming for now 15 minutes in 95 degree water.
Gross.
Give it one more stir and then cap the lid.
Okay.
That's gonna make a lot of rum.
So, it is still blurping, which is the technical term for when this little guy goes up and lets a little burp out. It's slowed way down. This is only supposed to take 5 to 7 days to ferment, and we're on day 9. This holds a lot, so make sure before you fill it up it's in the place you want it to be. We're gonna fill this up. Look at that perfect height, Kelly.
Engineering at its finest.
Oh, it's blurping now. We're gonna fill this up to about the 6 gallon mark. What's cool about this mash and boil is it has a graduated interior. So I can see right when we get to the 6 gallon point. I wanna stop it as close as I can to the 6 gallon point just to see how much volume we lose in the distilling process. This is working great though, Kelly.
Yeah, you're pretty happy with that?
I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, I think we're just about the 6 gallon mark. With a molasses wash. It's very difficult to do what traditionally you would do, which is to measure specific gravity before and after. So the person that came up with the recipe that we're using says to taste it. It shouldn't taste sweet, it should taste dry. And, bubbly. And that's kind of what it tastes like. Then we'll leave this in here to continue to ferment. This is the first one we did that contained Dunder.
That's it for part 1. Stay tuned for our next episode where we fire up the still and actually make some rum. Hey you, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to keep following along, become a subscriber. Just hit that subscribe button below.
Hello and welcome to our first attempt at making some moonshine. I don't know if I like that. I'm not going to do the voice for very long, just for the beginning.
Okay.
This is the yeast we're going to use. Needs a good spanking to know who's boss. This looks like the scene from some sort of drug manufacturing operation. Like, why do we have to be such buttholes holding out for the metric system? You can make this in a prison toilet if you had the right equipment.